Welcome to the MVP Show. Today's guest is Daniel Christian, all the way from North Carolina. We, of course, start with a bit of his background, where he's from, what's he up to, etc. He's been an MVP for 2 years. Very strong across Power BI, Power Apps, and of course Flow. Most of his experience comes from a SharePoint background, but CDS is also playing a future part in his career. I really like his attitude to constant learning and investing back into the community. He mentions a few times reference to Microsoft BizApp Summit. This actual podcast was recorded before Microsoft BizApp Summit. In fact, I'm just about to go get on a plane and go there, but it will be published after BizApp Summit. So if you hear reference to it, it's a done deal. It's done and dusted. But hey, I hope to see you at next year's BizApp Summit if you could plan on coming along. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/108. Now let's get on with the show. Daniel, welcome to the MVP Show.
Hey, I am so excited to be here. And just for everybody who knows, I'm Daniel Christian. I'm a Microsoft MVP on the Business Solutions. And I am just super stoked to talk to the NZ365 guy.
Thanks, man. It's I always enjoy these podcasts, and that, particularly with the newer MVPs. I think you've been an MVP, coming up 2 years, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2 years. Yeah. Feels like just yesterday, though.
So I just find it so great to, get to know you a bit better personally. And of course, those that are listening also will go on this experience of me finding out about you. So it should be fun. So Daniel, what part of the world do you come from? Where do you hail from? Where do you live? That type of thing.
Sure. So I was born and raised, at least for the first 17 years of my life, in when I left, it was called Bombay, India. It has changed to Mumbai, and I lived on the outside of that city. I was 17. I moved to U.S. and then kind of moved around a little bit. First stop was actually Dallas, Texas. Stayed there for only about 6 months. And then spent a good portion of my life in, of all the places, actually was Wichita, Kansas. The only time you actually hear the term Wichita, Kansas is in the movie Tornado. That's, when we're going through and the term Wichita shows up on the map over there. That's the only other time people actually know about Wichita, Kansas. It was a small town. It was a bit of a change because Mumbai had a population of 14 million at that time. And then Wichita only had 900,000. But it was a good city to kind of, get settled and just get familiar with the different culture. But I was there for almost 10 years, graduated from Wichita State University, did my bachelor's degree in computer engineering. I graduated back in 2005, and I was actually pursuing to be a medical, in the field of medicine, actually to be a doctor. But that didn't turn out well. And on the hindsight, it's actually a good thing, right? Because I wouldn't be here talking to you. Then moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm here for almost 9 years now. Actually getting close to 10 years. And I love this, the city and the state that we live in, pretty much 3 hours from everywhere, 3 hours from the ocean, 3 hours from the mountains. I have been part of so many communities over here, which is one of the passions that I have is, not only just to, keep serving the community, but you also learn from the community. And so over here, I'm one of the organizers of the SharePoint user group. Also, it's kind of a collaboration of not just SharePoint, but SharePoint Teams, the Power Platform, and became an MVP 2 years ago. In fact, there were 2 people who nominated me. One was actually from the product group, and that was because I just had passion for the entire Power Platform, because I don't just stick to one, which is the Power Apps or the Flow or the Power BI. I stick to all 3 of them because they collaborate so well.
So what do you call all 3? You're concluding Power BI?
Correct. So Power BI, as we call the big brother, that was one of the first things that I really got interested in. That's just because I come from, leveraging the SQL reporting services, using the SQL report builder, switched over to Tableau for a few years. And then when I got my hands on Power BI, I said, wow, this is like a miracle that's happened, because the pricing was so good. And switching over from Tableau to Power BI was so much easier because, the expressions are pretty much the same, what we call as DAX queries. But I also come from a SharePoint background. And with the SharePoint, one of the big things I used was InfoPad Designer, and I used SharePoint Designer. And I have invested a lot of my time and money learning those two tools. And then when they were deprecated, and then after that, the official announcement was made that Power Apps and Flow will be the successor. I said, this is my life's ambition now. I got to pick up these two tools. And one of the things is, and I always tell people, the only constant in technology is change. So you've got to adopt these new features. And but I'll tell you, I'll be honest. I did have some down moments because I, again, invested so much time in InfoPad Designer and SharePoint Designer. So I was a little bit of concerned at some point, a little frustrated. But then you just, take it on as a new hobby, as a new challenge. And I'm so glad that after, even though being an early adopter of the Power Apps and Flow, because I started working with it since its preview days, which was back in April of 2016. And I've seen that applications and those two, tools grow amazing in the past 2.5 years. And I'm very glad that being an early adopter here, I am, using these tools. And my ambition now is to encourage other people. In fact, I'd like to be the one guy who tells every person in the, in this globe that, hey, you don't know what you're missing, because it is easy. You don't have to be a professional. It's just literally a few clicks here and there. And that's what I do. I just have a passion for it.
Awesome. So tell me, you've obviously been on a journey with the technology, and whether from back in Project Sienna days and its transition through with Power Apps, and a lot of it started, if you like, in the 0365 kind of part of Microsoft, and now we've seen it in the last 18 months to 2 years totally transition over to being part of the Microsoft business applications. Were you a SharePoint MVP first, and then you became a Biz App, or have you been a Biz App MVP from day one?
I have been a Biz App MVP for day one.
Okay.
And Audrey Gordon, she was actually the one who nominated me. And then there were another MVP, he was an MVP for almost 20 years. They nominated me, and just as a slight segue, is one of the things I tell other people who are aspiring to be MVPs is that if you try to become an MVP, you will never become one. That should not be your goal. And so I just had a passion for these platforms. My initial goal was I need to see how I can start switching over from InfoPad Designer and SharePoint Designer to Power Apps and Flow. And that was my big goal. And then I started blogging heavily on it. I got really connected to the three communities: the Power Apps, the Power users, the Flow users, and the Power BI users. Those three communities have helped me so much that I just feel it's my turn to pay back, which is why I blog once a month. I put up all my blogs over there on those communities, and in addition to the blogs and the videos, I just upload my apps over there. So you can go ahead and download that MSAPP files and just do that. So, but yeah, it was all, I came in from the Biz App side over there. But now with all these connectors and everything available, I hit all the platforms, and my new, it's been about a year now, passion has been leveraging the AI and the machine learning using cognitive services. Because I love to make things easier, and cognitive services, especially with the speech and the text and the OCR, really does help you take all the moderation piece and the tagging and all of that to the next level. And Flow and Power Apps makes things so much easier because they've got these connectors and they've got all of these tools in it to just help you take it to the next level. So it's not a job; it is a fun hobby. That's what I'll tell you.
Yeah, so good. So, I've been in Biz Apps myself for some time, and I've always come from, what under Power Apps we would call the common data model side of things. And your experience, I take it, is more on the Canvas app side of things. What do you think of Microsoft's journey in this space?
I do like the fact that they are narrowing the gap more and more on a monthly basis. I that's the one thing that I like. I'll be honest, I would say about 6 months ago, I was a little concerned because I kept seeing, and to this day, some people have that same concern too, is when something comes out, any new feature comes out, the first thing it is it is geared towards is the common data services, the CDSs and the entities over there. Any new feature comes out, it says, oh, and this is available for the entities, which is great. But not everybody is buying that license over there. And honestly, not everybody can afford that license over there. But there's a lot of us who have actually made that very clear. And what I like the fact is that do all the new features, let them come out on the CDS side and then eventually make them available for these other connectors as well. Popular ones. I mean, the top two I've always seen are always the Azure SQL. I've always seen it for SharePoint as well. Excel specifically in OneDrive or another one of those. So those are the common ones that I'm seeing being used a lot. And the Power Platform group, they are listening. One of my personal favorite features of their personality as a whole is that these guys listen and they give you feedback. They've got a plan, so obviously they've got to work with whatever their plan is, but they listen. And we are able to leverage them at these events that come up. Go walk up and talk to them because these guys listen, and so that's what we tell them is that any Dynamics 365 licensing people, they've already got the CDS. Great, they can go ahead and leverage that. But I've also worked with Dynamics 365 people who say that the backend is already ready. They've got the model-driven apps. They've already got their entire process figured out, but they still want to use the front-end Canvas app, especially for those people who are on the road. All they need is to, pick up their smartphones, open up the mobile app, and start putting in entry over there. Well, then Canvas apps works well for them too. So at the product groups, especially as a whole, the Power Platform people, are well aware of this, and specifically on the Power App side, I like the direction that they're trying to narrow. Put the two together, the Canvas apps and the product apps and the model-driven apps, but they are still going to be available, and that kind of makes me happy because my personal passion is towards Canvas apps. But the flexibility to have the Canvas apps with the backend as common data services, such that still common data service entity can be leveraged on the model-driven apps, such that two of them are talking to the same thing, is perfect for this day and age, because there's office people and then there are those who are on the road, and both of them are tying into the same entity, and that really is a really good plan, and I'm excited about that.
So what advice would you have for folks that have a strong, if you like, SharePoint background, and they're wanting to also, understand what does CDS mean, Azure Data Lakes, how does this all come together and kind of make it possible to build probably solutions that are, quite extensible and can plug into a range of things. What training material is out there, or how does a SharePoint person kind of get up to speed on the CDS side of things?
So for the SharePoint people, especially those who already are having existing lists available, and and they're already considering that, okay, these lists are there. The number of rows in these lists are increasing a lot, and they need to come up with a way to actually move these to another platform. I would start telling them that, hey, if you already are leveraging these lists for some kind of reporting or tasks or step-oriented process, then yeah, you want to start looking at other options available out there. And if money is not a problem, then look at these other options which are available in the entire CDS, common data services over there. Because especially if they've got old forms attached to that list, like a InfoPath Designer form, they are going to have to migrate that anyway. So why don't you start considering to use this as an opportunity to start leveraging the entire Power Platform, specifically with the common data services over there. And beautiful thing is the common data, the platform, especially the Power Apps people, have made remarkable improvements on importing data. And so from an Excel spread, from a SharePoint list, you can export that as an Excel spreadsheet. And with an Excel spreadsheet, you can go ahead and import that into a CDS entity. And that makes the migration so much more easier. And then, just like we talked about, is you have your entire model-driven apps and all of the steps for like a workflow process already built in over there. Some of them are as templates available, But then you can take it one step further, because a SharePoint um, InfoPad designer form means you got to be stuck in front of a computer to use that browser. Now, with the Common Data Service as your backend, you can leverage Power Apps with the Canvas app, build an app, a mobile app, and just like we talked about, both from the Canvas-driven app for simple inputs or just viewing the data is talking to the CDS entity, and the same thing for model-driven apps and the people who are, the office people who are crunching those numbers and constantly keeping track of all of these projects that are going on, or invoices or whatever. They still have the desktop features available over there. So my bottom line is, if you're a SharePoint person specifically with these InfoPad designer type of forms, and they are already having performance problems, and they just overbuilt something over there, and I completely understand that, because I am one of those people. At that time, that was all the options I had, and so. And at some point, money was a problem. That's all I had financing for. But things have changed. Costs have, become a lot more easier to handle. And they know that they are going into use another options. Another good one I've always come across is people who are looking at leveraging some, two things. One is build an app. It should have some kind of out-of-the-box reporting capabilities. And they don't have that full business plan, or they don't have the full enterprise plan. Then I would tell them that, okay, consider Power Apps, because there's different options for data sources over there. You don't have to have the entire enterprise licenses, because I'll be honest, I've actually come across a few people who were heavy on Google users on the Google plan over there. But they really did not like the Google Forms. So it was clunky, difficult to work with. It says that we need another solution over there. I says, well, Power Platform would be a great option for you. You've got quite a few data connector options available over there. You've got quite a few out-of-the-box templates available over there. And just like we mentioned before, there are full package deals available where, the people who sit in the office, they have one forms, or in the Common Data Service model-driven apps. So it is surprise. It would not surprise me if I hear again somebody once a week saying that I love Google, love everything about it. Email's great. The file servers are great, but man, those out of the box form features are not very impressive. And I'll tell them that hey, you can still leverage connectors with the email systems from Google and things like that. But as far as for notification, but as far as building good forms, you may want to look at something else, and the Power Platform is a very strong competitor.
Yeah. So do you know much about the licensing, the Power Platform licenses?
I do. It's a common question that comes up in every...
Can you explain the differences between P1 and P2 to me?
Sure. So, and I want to take it one step further too. The questions I always get started with is the enterprise licenses. Most common package deals I hear companies have is E3s and E5s. Everybody says, hey, my company's got the E3, some of you got the E5. Is that going to be good enough? I says, first thing is, it depends on what you're trying to do. So they say that, well, one of the common things is most of it is online, but we have a few on-premises SQL databases, and we want to leverage those. I said, well, that's the first thing. In that case, if you're going to hit on-prem, you will have to have at least a Power Apps Plan 1, because only that gives you the option for on-premises gateway. He says, well, that's not what I heard from our people that they contact. I says, you actually may be right, because things were a little different a few months ago, and that change has been made. So it's a good thing that this question was brought up, because now you are up to date on that. So that's usually a common one that comes up, is the Plan 1. At least you need to have that Plan 1 so that you can start leveraging on-premises gateways. Now, Plan 2 comes in very handy if you want to start creating more environments, you want to start creating more analytics, you want to actually have leveraging a lot more governance and policies around that, your apps and everything. And I tell people, if you're looking at an enterprise level app or an enterprise level solution, you need to have a few Plan 2s available for that, because not only do you want to build the app, but you need to have the entire tools to support it, not just from what it does, but also from the analytics standpoint to be able to have a full blown, dev, UAT production environments, be able to, again, run the analytics on that, creating the governance policies around it. Because Power Apps is built for an enterprise level, situation, but you got to pay for that. And nothing is free. And if it's something is good, you want to definitely pay for that. And this application is good. And so that is the thing. Plan one will do its basic, and you can go ahead and build the apps. You can go ahead and do on-premises gateway, pretty much everything you want. You want to take it to a next enterprise level app, including the whole, breaking it down into the different environments, breaking it down into the entire analytics piece from the governance standpoint. You want to be on that plan too as well.
What about, is there any restrictions around Flow? Do you see people buying extra type Flow licenses at all, when they get heavily into doing that automation side of things?
So the Flow F1 and the F2 licensings are definitely a little bit less expensive. But over there, what I've seen is, again, you want Flow 1 for on-premise, you have on-premises connectors, then you have to have at least that Flow 1. What does get people, and I've seen this mostly on the small to mid-sized companies, is the number of flows that run per person per month. There is a significant difference, and I don't recall the exact number, of how many flows per person can run per month based on F1 or the Flow 1 plan, as against how many flows per person per user based on the Flow 2 plan. There are other, bells and whistles along in the Flow 2 plan, but that's the one thing which actually, comes out, is that this one user has made a useful flow. It is definitely needed, but we may run out of flows a little faster. And we are a small, shop over here, only 25 or 50 people over there. So that's when looking at a higher number of flows per person per user, you want to look at the Flow 2 plan over there. And the Flow licensing is definitely less expensive compared to the Power Apps one. And if flows is all they want, they don't really care about a customized form or a model-driven apps type of situation, then switching over from Flow 1 to Flow 2 is definitely less expensive.
So good. I've learned so much from you. That's very, very helpful. Tell me, did anything change when you became an MVP?
Honestly, my attitude did not change. That's one thing. I did have the pleasure of learning something and getting knowledge faster. And so, but you've got to respect that MVP NDA, non-disclosure agreement. And I want to call that out immediately, because sometimes MVPs don't even do it intentionally. They don't, share information fast. They just get excited about it and they want to share. It says, no, but you got to keep all the excitement aside. You've got to respect your NDA. And so that has changed from me. I get a better insight of what the product is moving towards. So, I am able to help, all the other, people who want to use them, and they come and reach out to me. If it hasn't been announced yet, I will tell people that there's something that can potentially come out, which can solve the request you had. I just tell them, wait for it. It can come out, in the next day. Right now, if somebody asks me, just wait for MBAS, Microsoft Business Application Summit. There's some neat updates that are coming out, new features that are going to come out over there. Just wait for it. Don't make any decisions yet. So getting knowledge a little ahead of time is great. And then getting plugged in with the product groups is fantastic. I cannot thank them enough. I'll give you an example. There was at the SharePoint conference when I spoke, one of the demos I was doing for the social media communications. I had a little issue with the connector, and I was able to reach out to these guys and say that, hey, I'm demoing your product. I want to have some, share your excitement with these guys. Can you help me with this one thing? And few people I reached out to, and they were able to help me get in touch with the right person. And I, was able to get that situation solved. And as a repayment, I will blog about it. So, I blog about it in deep dive so that, that way everybody else can see how that same problem was solved over there. So having that type of connections is great. Keeping in touch with these communities is great. I get to share all the fun things that I learn with. My most common blogs are in the Power Users community over there. Once a month I blog. That's the routine I keep up with. On the and able to represent from the MVP side over there. But the MVPs, again, I tell people this is that I became an MVP, 2 years ago, but I never let that get into my head. I am still a very people and oriented person. I honestly, I still geek out when I see other MVPs. Like I look at, say, man, I learned so much from this person over there, and I completely forget that I'm an MVP because I just geek out over there. So I tell people that being an MVP is great, but let that not be your single motivation to be one. And like always be humble, because the MVPs are for the people. They are by the now by Microsoft or another fellow MVP is the only one who can nominate you. But your single most ambition as a Microsoft MVP needs to be that you need to help, and based on whatever platform that you want to focus on or things like that, it has to repay it back to the community.
Daniel, we've been talking already for 25 minutes, and so we're almost on time. I always like to wrap up with a few end questions. I've definitely learned a lot from you today already. But tell me, how do you stay organized? What productivity tools do you use to stay organized?
So there's a few things. Key thing is that stay plugged into the community. So there's a few things that I personally do. On social media, there are quite a few people and product group on Twitter, say the Twitter handles and things like that. You want to follow key people over there because the social media is now the fastest way to share information. That's one thing. Be plugged into communities. So I specialize on the Power Platform, and the data services that I like are SharePoint and things like that. So they have their own. SharePoint has a very powerful tech community over there. Get plugged into that as well and keep up with all of those things. I love also that many of these big conferences that come up, like the SharePoint one that just was there recently in May. Next week we're going to have MBAS. I love that many of these communities now have the opening day posted or available through a webinar. Attend it. I mean, I understand that people are still working, but it's completely fine to have another laptop or another device just plugged in, and you're able to just continue to do your job. But just hear these webinars that are going on over there. You've got a question, ask it in these communities. Definitely help over there, whether you're in the power users or the Flow or in the Power BI platforms or the tech communities. Ask questions over there because they have people who answer on that. And then personal thing which I do is I'm a very self-taught person. I don't go and tell the companies I work for is that, oh, I can't do this because you never taught me or you never gave me the time to do that. We live in a day and age where there is always competition, and I always believe that if you can't do your job, there are 10 other people who can do it. So you need to be a self-taught person, and self-taught person takes your own time, takes your own money sometimes. So yeah, be there, learn, always be a learning person. And just be excited about these new things. Keep up with technology, be excited about new things. And I tell people again, we live in a day and age where the only constant in technology is change, and adopt that. Don't spend too much time getting frustrated about changes coming in, which is going to take things difficult. Look at the big picture, adopt it, and just move forward. And just be, always excited to learn new things.
Yeah, very good. Daniel, it's been great having you on the show. If people want to connect with you online, where can they find you?
The best way actually would be on social media. So LinkedIn is a great place. Just go to LinkedIn and search for that. Daniel Christian over there, or Daniel Christian MVP. I am pretty active on Twitter. My Twitter handle is thechristian19. I also have a great YouTube channel. So I just tell people on YouTube, go ahead and just search for Daniel Christian Power Apps, and the first pop-up will be me. Go ahead and subscribe for my channel because every month I release a new video over there. So in one of these three places, go ahead and you'll definitely find me. I respond very fast in all of them. I'm constantly answering questions on Twitter, constantly asking questions on LinkedIn. And I'm one of the guys where people will, when I post a video and they're answering questions, I will respond to the questions because that's part of my daily task. I actually have a task assigned for myself. Every day I go to my YouTube and I look at the comments which have been added, and I will answer to my comments over there. So either one of these three, there's a great place to connect with me.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that show. If you liked it, please subscribe on whatever popular app that you're actually using and leave me a comment. I love getting feedback, so feel free to leave a comment in whichever product you use. For full show notes, check out nz365guy.com/108. I look forward to seeing you same time next week.